Fans, welcome. Hey, Raider fans, welcome to my new podcast called Andrew's NFL Podcast. This will basically be NFL Daily News. And in today's episode, I want to talk about the Raiders and what's going on with them, including Jimmy Garoppolo's foot injury update, Tyree Wilson being put on the non-injury football list, and Bryce Young being put on the PUP list. So I'm gonna go ahead and start off with Jimmy Garoppolo. And one thing with Jimmy Garoppolo is that we have now learned that he will be able to practice. He's been cleared for practice, and I really feel like this could help the Raiders this year a lot because when you look at his win loss record, when he's been able to play, his total win loss record is 53 wins and only 21 losses. So I really feel like he's a pretty good solo quarterback. We've seen that over the years with him while he's been playing with San Francisco, and he also does have a history with Josh McDaniels as an offensive coach for the New England Patriots. So having him already know a lot of Josh McDaniels' offensive plays, I mean schemes, I feel like this could really help the Raiders out. Because again, Derek Carr, when Josh McDaniels came in, he didn't know anything about any of his offensive plays. I mean that really made it hard, as we saw last year with Derek Carr and Josh McDaniels with that 6-11 record. So again, having him there, that could really help and really affect the way that the Raiders' season turns out this year. But something that was unfortunate is Bryce Young being put on the PUP list, which means he will be out for at least 6 games this season. And it was pretty exciting when we saw him get picked in the draft this year, as well as Tyree Wilson, who has been put on the non-injury football list, which is very good because that means that he doesn't have to stay out, for 6 games this season. He can come back anytime. So he can come back in week 2, week 3. So that's good news for him, and he's been a pretty good solid player. So I'm excited to get to see him come out and see what he can do this year with Max Crosby, who I think will also be leading in sacks in the NFL this season. So go ahead and look at that short on my channel. Um, but again, I feel like with Tyree Wilson and Bryce Young, while it looks like Bryce Young won't be playing for at least 6 games this season, having Tyree Wilson there will help fill in that gap this year. And will also help give the defense a little bit more of a breathing room this year because we've seen over the last few years that they've been trying to get the defense together. But another good thing is also being able to have the quarterback Aiden O'Connell be drafted too, because I feel like he could be a pretty good starter or a backup for Jimmy Garoppolo if he goes down this season. Which I don't think he'll be able to play all 17 games, but the games I do think that he'll be able to play, I do definitely think the Raiders will get a pretty good record with him, and then we can see what Aiden O'Connell can do this year as far as him being a backup goes. And then another thing I do want to talk about this in this episode is Josh Jacobs, and we know that he was not able to reach an agreement with the Raiders. And just 2 days ago, we did learn that he had left Las Vegas as players were going to practice. So that is something to be a little bit worried about because if he is not able to reach any type of deal or get franchise tagged by the Raiders, what we could potentially see is him being cut by the Raiders this year, and then the Raiders will have to use a backup running back instead of him. And he was really good last year. Had over 1,000 rushing yards, and I mean he was just such a big part of that offensive line and plays last year that I feel like without him this year, having to use a backup, that could potentially be a big problem for the Raiders because again, the running game is a big part of Josh McDaniel's scheme as far as offensive play calls go. And him again, like I just said, he was a big part of that. Really hope the Raiders out last year. Offensive line was able to make big plays for him, make big gaps so he could run. And again, as far as he goes, again, great solid running back. But there was some good news though. While we lost Darren Waller, we did gain a great tight end in the draft, Michael Mayer out of Notre Dame. This guy was, I mean, he was a great as far as tight ends go. Played for Notre Dame for 4 years, and I like what I can see out of him. So a lot of his highlights in that guy. It looks like he has a lot of potential for the Raiders this year. Looks like he will be the starting tight end for the Raiders this year. We did sign some other people like Austin Hooper, who played for Tennessee previously. And I feel like while he is a decent tight end, Michael Mayer is just so much better. Is able to develop really quickly and will develop a lot this year playing for the Raiders. And I cannot wait to see what him as well as Tyree Wilson will bring to the team this year. The Raiders also signed some other players this year, including Marcus Epps from the Eagles. And again, a lot of these players that they have signed this year, some cornerbacks. These guys are gonna make. I think these guys can make some definitely big plays for the Raiders this year. We just have to know how to use them properly, and know when to use them and how to use them. And if we can do that, I think the Raiders could actually have a shot at a winning record this year. I think the Raiders could potentially go 11-6 this season. We just have to again use our plays wisely And really, again, it's up to Josh McDaniels' offensive plays, what he does this year. There were plays last year that shouldn't have been used in situations that were used, where Raiders 29-31 loss to the Chiefs, trying to throw it downfield to Devontae Adams, when you could have just handed the ball off to Josh Jacobs, to gain that 1 yard. That was something that wasn't necessarily the correct play call there, and that, again, um, came up with a loss because of that. Um, there are a lot of other things there too. I don't have time to mention them all, but point being, it's really up to Josh McDaniels this year and his offensive head coach what they need to do, to get this team back on a winning track. Because having John Gruden as the head coach before previously, starting off the 2021 season, we were 3-0 with him. He was a great head coach, and then we had Rich Bisaccia after he had to unfortunately resign with the team, and we actually made it to the playoffs that year with him. So I feel like, with him, if we had stuck with him this year, we could have had a very much previously we would have had a great winning record with this team. And again, a lot of this is going to be up to what they do this year. They have to know how to use these players wisely, including making Devontae Adams a big part of their passing game this year. We have seen a few clips of Jimmy Garoppolo throwing the ball to Devontae Adams, and I mean he makes some bomb plays with Devontae Adams. So I'm excited to see what they'll be able to do as teammates this year. See how he'll be used with Josh McDaniels this year. See how a lot of these other players are going to be used too. Someone like Hunter Renfrow, Michael Mayer. We got Jacoby Myers in here too. Not necessarily some of the best players, I'm saying, like Jacoby Myers, Hunter Renfrow, but someone like Michael Mayer. And if we're able to get Josh Jacobs franchise tagged, I think he'll definitely be a big part of the Raiders offense this year. They're going to use him a lot, I think. I think he'll have another record-breaking season, along with Devontae Adams, who had double-digit touchdowns last year, over 1,200 yards last year. And then again, both these guys were just great. Were amazing last year. I cannot wait to see what they do this year. Thank you guys, and I hope you like my new podcast. Go ahead and comment down below what you think the Raiders' record will be this season.